Hey guys, glad you stopped by as always. It's dinner time, right? Well, it will be soon at any rate. And today, it has been forever since I have done a soup of any kind, which is really odd. Soups are one of my favorite things, and I'm not talking, just little chunks of chicken, small noodles, like maybe you get in a can, but a good soup that you don't get very often, especially this one. And it is it's a squash-based soup. It's a butternut squash soup, which is traditionally fall, winter type soup, but I'm not one for tradition, and fall's right around the corner anyhow, right? And I have some, so why not? And it's something that I've noticed, at least here, and with this being, small town America where you can't really get a whole lot of diversity, especially at the grocery store, we carry it. So the fact that we have it in our town means that you probably get it anywhere. But this is actually butternut squash that we grew last year, and I froze it back in February. So it's time to get it out of the fridge, or out of the freezer in this case, and start utilizing it. That way I can make room for new stuff coming on. I've got summer squash for days, and which I've been eating. Every day. The recipe we did a couple weeks back with the chicken and the summer vegetables, and the rock star of that being the summer squash. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. For sure. I can leave a link down below. We can put it at the end if you guys make it that long and don't get tired of me. But great dish, and this I think is going to be amazing too. This is not a hard dish to make, and in this case it is going to be a savory one. There are two different look like schools of thought on a butternut squash soup, and that was a savory or a sweet, more of a pumpkin pie fall soup with maple syrup, nutmeg, things of that nature that you would traditionally put into a pie, or if you were making squash in the oven with as a like a sweet potato. But we're not, so I'm going to go with savory. And with this, I've got fresh thyme, which I got to get out of my garden, fresh sage, which I also got to get out of my garden, and that was awesome. And then some vegetables, and it's going to be amazing, I think. I'm going to quit talking about it so we can make it, but on that same note, if you're new and this is your first video, welcome. If you are returning or one of our new subscribers, welcome back and thank you. I appreciate that more than you know. The fact you give me a little bit of your day, wow, hands down, wow, really. I don't mean that lightly at all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Comments always welcome. I respond to all of them, good, bad, or indifferent. The only thing I ask is you think before you type. It's okay to disagree, just be polite about it. That's all we ask. Our neighborhood is small, but it's mighty, and we all are very cordial with each other. So I will give you all your measurements in cups, tablespoons, teaspoons. I will also give them to you in grams and milliliters. That way, no matter where you're at, you can play along. I feel that's very important, right? So why don't we head on down here to the counter, and we are going to start making our butternut squash soup. All right, hold on for me 1 second. Okay, so we are down here at the counter. Stock pot, right? Now I've got a 9 quart, it says on here. Well, it's 9 liters, so it's actually about 10 quarts. Stock pot, but if you have a Dutch oven, about a 6 quart stock pot, this should work. According to the recipe that I base most of this off of. But if you have a bigger stock pot, for sure try to use it if you're going to follow this recipe, because I have a lot going on. But first things we need to do, we need a couple tablespoons of a good oil, or you can use butter. I couldn't decide which one I wanted to use, and I ended up going with vegetable oil. But we're going to do about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons worth of vegetable oil. If you're going to use butter, it's also 2 tablespoons. And we're going to put that in there right off the rip. And then in our pot, we're going to go ahead and I've got 3 pounds. It was a little more than 1 butternut squash, but you want one large butternut squash, and you want to go ahead and peel the outside of it off and gut it like you would a pumpkin, right? You take the seeds out and the pulp, and then cube it up. Now, if you struggle to get the outside of the skin off of it, it's okay. All you have to do is you can boil it for like 30 seconds. You can steam it. You can put it in your oven for about 15 minutes, and it'll loosen that up. You just don't want to completely cook it, right? So you want to keep an eye on it. But either way it goes. But it's really not that hard. If my old butt can, with my messed up hands, can peel it with a peeler, I think you can too. But those are a couple ways you can. Like I said, boil it just for a minute, and it'll peel the skin off, or oven, steam, however. No different than you would a pumpkin. But 3 pounds, 2.5 to 3 pounds worth of squash, butternut squash. We're gonna go ahead and get this in here. To this, which is a little over 1 kilogram of squash. It is 1 to 1.3 kilograms. And then I have got on this lovely little pile here, I have it's a small to medium onion. It's about 200 grams right there. And then I have got 1 medium-sized carrot at 100 grams. I have got 2 stalks of celery, or if you just have 1 large stalk of celery, rock on, and it's about 80 grams. And then hidden underneath all that, if you can see it, sorry, I guess I could bring it in just a hair closer. Hidden underneath the celery and carrots is 2 medium-sized potatoes. It's almost a pound's worth of potatoes. And then right there on the very end, where my thumb is 3 cloves of garlic. Not cut, not nothing. And if you notice, my potatoes are starting to get brown because they're russets, and I peeled them, chopped them, and they've been sitting here for a minute. But we're gonna go ahead and get those in, just like such. And we're gonna give this all a quick stir together. Get some of that oil coated on there. Because what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna cook this for about 5-10 minutes. And we're just gonna let things get a little brown, on the outside edges, that way we can start to bring out that flavor. But before we do that, I've got 1 tablespoon of fresh sage that I just chopped up. And all this is roughly chopped, by the way, because we're going to end up in a blender. So, you just want it small enough to sizzle and cook. But before we put it in the blender, but I've got our sage, and that's fresh sage. 1 tablespoon, which is maybe 3 grams fresh, just because it is so light. Now, if you are using dried of either of these two, because the other one is rosemary, and it's a tablespoon of fresh rosemary, also maybe a gram, half that. So you would use a half a tablespoon of fresh sage and a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary if you're using those dried like you buy at the store. But I'm also learning that more and more the grocery stores are starting to carry fresh herbs in small packages. I mean, depending on what grocery store you go to, you can buy basil and thyme as a plant now. The one I have, my basil, I ended up just putting it in the ground for the summer. That way, and it's a bush now, believe it or not. And and then in the winter, since basil doesn't do well in the cold, come winter time, when I start processing tomatoes, I'll put fresh basil in my tomato sauce and my spaghetti sauce and my pizza sauce, and then the rest of it I'll dry. And then next year I'll plant anew. I've got some seeds saved from where it flowered and bloomed and all that stuff. But anyhow, I'm gonna let this go about 5-10 minutes so we can get a little browning on it, and then when I come back, we can move forward. All right, see you here in just 1 second. Okay, so we've been about 10 minutes, and we are starting to get a little bit of light brown caramel color to most of our vegetables, at least some of them, but we are starting to, they're colorful. You'll notice when you cook vegetables when they hit their brightness is really when you want to start moving forward. Yeah, they do, they get bright. But the stuff that's been sitting on the bottom, I have been stirring on occasion. It's starting to get a little caramel color to it, light brown, but nothing huge. And that's okay. I don't want that to be a thing. I want a little bit of that roasted flavor, but not a lot. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add some chicken broth. So I'm gonna say 4 cups, 32 ounces, or a quart, you know, depending on where you're at. But it may take more than that because I'm sitting here looking at all the vegetables I have in my container right here. Here, I'll show you again. Right there, and that looks like, I mean, I just poured 1 pint in there, you know, 16 ounces, and it barely covered it. And I need this to be covered. As far as, you know, what our next step is, because we're going to cook this down. So yeah, so at 32 ounces, that didn't cover it. So I guess it'll depend on how much vegetables you use. But again, this is where you have the interpretation of what is a medium carrot, what is a small onion, what is, you know, the recipe that I got this portion out of didn't specify, you know, gram weights or anything like that. It was just, you know, kind of by ear. So we're already at a quart, 32 ounces. So I'm going to go ahead and add another pint, you know, another 16 ounces worth. And I'll have the milliliters down in the description below, or I may have it right here right now, depending on how my editing skills are going. But I'm going to end up with 2 quarts in here, is what it's going to come down to. So, boom, a quart, 2 quarts, and now I am comfortably covered. And I make my own, I do make my own chicken broth. If you're interested, I have a video on that also. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna bring this to a boil. I'm gonna put a lid on it, but I'm not gonna completely cover it. I'm gonna get it up to a boil, turn it down to low, let it simmer with the lid completely on it for 40 minutes. So when I come back, the 40 minutes will be up and we can move on to the next step. All right, I'll see you here in a second. Okay, so we've been about 40-ish minutes. We'll call it 40 minutes, why not? Of simmering, and we're in pretty good shape. Find a home here for our mixer, or our lid, and show you where we're at here. But right here is where we're at. Just like such, we'll give it a stir, and you see everything softened up, right? Sorry, my one-handed camera skills aren't always that good. But everything has loosened up, softened up over the last 40 minutes. Our vegetables and herbs and chicken stock have gotten to know each other and learned how to play together a little bit. So our next step involves this blender. Now, you don't have to use a blender by any stretch of the imagination. Matter of fact, I very rarely use my blender. It is amazing. I was talking to the cashier at the grocery store today about how we're talking about air fryers, and she says she has one. She doesn't believe she's ever used it. And it took me about a year before I started using my 11-in-1. The blender's the same way. Sometimes you just get so used to using the tools you have that when you get one that's new, you don't use it right away, which is kind of crazy. But I am going to take I don't remember what this is called, but a spoon, slotted spoon. You can use any slotted spoon, I suppose. And I am going to put my vegetables in my blender. Now, I have a high-speed Ninja blender gig that like I said, we bought forever ago to make, I don't remember with, but we make smoothies with it on occasion. And but you use whatever one you have. But we just want to get our vegetables out of there and into here as much as I can fit in here. What doesn't fit in here, I'll use a potato masher and I'll mash it down. That way we have a little bit of chunkiness to it. If you don't want that little bit of chunkiness in your soup, you can most certainly run this once, put it in a bowl, put the rest of it in here if it doesn't all fit, and have a really nice creamy soup, you know, to go with it. But anyhow, we're gonna get these in here, and I think this is gonna be the last scoop for right this second. And then we're gonna put our lid back on. This is where I set it, over here. And then like I said, I'm actually just gonna mix this on medium or high, or blend it until it's nice and smooth. Oh, as soon as I get a power, there we go. All right, so we got our last batch in. I get the lid off here. I did learn with the first round that if I didn't lift this lid was a pain to get off. It got so hot that it actually had sealed itself, for lack of a better word. The steam had just caused it to stick. But now we'll go ahead and get this last batch in. All right, so got all that out of the blender. Oh, maybe set that to the side there. So now what we want to do is wipe the top of our hand off because we got squash on it, and we're gonna give this a good stir to get the excuse me, get the soup back together. So we got all the liquid in here still, the chicken broth, right, and any vegetable that, any vegetable juice, broth that would have come out of the said vegetables. But which that, by the way, was another option, and I don't know if I mentioned it what would be for you guys a minute or so ago. But when we put the chicken broth in, you can also use veggie broth. You can make this completely vegan, I mean, as far as that goes, where it's nothing but vegetables, because we got our vegetables in there, our herbs, and the only thing that you would have to change is use a veggie broth versus the chicken broth. But now that we got that done, we got one more small set of ingredients to put in, and that's salt and pepper. We're gonna do it to taste. So I'm gonna almost always start out half a teaspoon, or a heavy pinch of salt to start with. I'm not a big fan of using a lot of salt and stuff. Salt is made to enhance the other flavors, not so much become a flavor in and of itself, in my opinion. And there are those that share my opinion. And then we're going to do a half a teaspoon of pepper. Put that in there. And then we're going to give that a good stir, like such. And then we are just simply going to let this cook down to a thickness of our liking. So, I mean, if you like it more of a, I don't want to say a bisque, but if you like a thicker soup, we can let it cook down. But I'm going to you can let it cook down a little more, to whatever you like. But I'll go ahead and get this stirred in. I'm going to give it a taste, just a quick little flavor check to make sure we got enough salt and pepper in there. Remember, it's bringing out the flavors. I think we're going to let it cook down just a little bit more, and then we'll recheck it again, but I think it could use just a little more salt. But when I come back, we'll be able to put it in a bowl and give it a try, and we'll talk about things you can top it with. All right, so we have cooked down some, and not a whole lot. I went about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes. And then I let it rest. So that way when we go to eat it, I mean, because as you can see, it's still steaming, and we're talking about a half hour maybe total between the cook down time and the letting it rest time, so that way it didn't melt your face. And in the meantime, I went ahead and I did up some side dishes, or some toppers for this. Because things you can top this with. I saw, sour cream was on there. That would be a good one. And a lot of this will depend on how you make it. If you go with the sweet style of, which I would kind of like to try it, but it kind of defeats in my mind the purpose of a healthy soup. by adding sweetness to it, but some people used maple syrup and brown sugar along with some nutmeg, allspice, cardamom, things like that. Like I said, basically pumpkin pie spices, and I thought that was a bit much for what I was looking for. I wanted something savory, so we came up with this, and it didn't matter what we did. Everybody was like, add your own, what spices you want, so on and so forth. But here's what we ran into. As we were cooking it down, Chris came home for lunch, and she tried it, and she goes, it's kind of bland. So I thought so too. Why don't we try some salt? And we put a little more salt in it, but was still missing something. And then she says to me, what about smoked paprika? You know what? You're right. So what we added to this while we were off camera was a half a teaspoon of smoked paprika, about 2 grams worth, and then I added more salt. So you want a total of 4 grams, 1 teaspoon of salt. So you're half a teaspoon, 2 grams of black pepper, and then I added a half a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, 2 grams, a half a teaspoon of smoked paprika to it. Now, topping wise, with this particular route, you could go with just some sour cream. Some roasted red pepper diced up would be really good also. Or some cilantro, fresh cilantro sprinkled on top. I think would be amazing. But what I want to run with is I've got 3 toppings down here, which I don't know if you can see them. And the first one is just bacon, finely chopped bacon, and it was a thick cut applewood smoked bacon, which I would like to learn how to smoke my own bacon, and I will eventually. And I'm gonna put that on there because it sounds good, and just a pinch, not a lot. I mean, I'm working very hard to eat healthy, and bacon is not healthy, but it's the only unhealthy thing in here, and it's just a little bit. So I think that's okay. And then I've got some finely diced up red onion, right? And you're like, Brian, it's got onion in it already. And you're right, it does. But red onion is a little sweeter to go with that savory, and it just has a different flavor than the yellow onion. On top of, not that you can't taste the onion in this, when I tried it prior to the saltings, you could taste the onion, but not like fresh onion. There's a difference in flavors between cooked and fresh. So, and then the last thing I'm gonna add to this is, and I could have gone fresh if I had some, but I don't, so I want pickled jalapeno that I also finely diced up. And we'll put that on top. Now, I could throw some sour cream on top of this and call it a day, but I am not that big of a fan of sour cream. I know lots of people out there going, what? But it's true. If it's in a dish, that's great. Outside of a dish, I think that it is slightly overbearing, and I'm not a fan of that. So now, all I gotta do real quick here is find a spoon. They are all here in the stew flake. There we are. That took forever, right? But here we are, right there, and I think that looks fantastic. That little bit extra color and everything did sink, but that's okay, because here's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna stir it up. So it doesn't really make a difference, does it? That dollop on the top is just for presentation. I suppose you could put a little bit of sour cream on that and it would be okay. I'm not going over to the fridge to get it though, because I really want to taste it pretty much as is. So let's give her a shot at any rate. It's really good. It's rich, but it's not horribly savory or bitter. You know how like sometimes like with spaghetti sauce, you can make it too acidic and it's like, oh, and you gotta add sweetness to it. This is perfect. Just perfect. If anything at all, maybe a hair more salt But I can taste the carrots, give it just that right amount of sweetness, along with the butternut squash, the onion, but the yellow and the red. Balance that along with the celery. I can taste it, but not overbearing, because celery can be overbearing if you're not careful. But man, oh man. And with a little bit of bacon that went in there, you can actually just that little bit, you can taste the flavor. This is so well balanced. Give this a try. Now, when Chris gets home from work and we serve this for dinner, I'll reheat it. We're just going to have it with a side of bread. Yeah, I bought a really nice Italian loaf. I'll throw it in the oven, get it warmed up, toast it real good after I slice it up, and we'll just simply have a couple slices of bread with it. But you could also do a salad. A salad would be absolutely wonderful with this. Just something with a lot of green in it and vegetables, and have a good healthy meal that's just packed full of flavor. You can't go wrong with this. Give this a try. I really think that you'll enjoy this. And it's easy to make, so easy to make. And other than the butternut squash, everything else you probably have sitting in your fridge. I would almost lay odds on it. But, oh, so good, so good. If you do give this a try, let me know. Let me know down in the comments below. Or on Facebook, if you want. But, you know, comments here keep us out in the algorithm. Don't forget that, guys. Helps us grow. Always growing. But, or if you have a butternut squash recipe, soup recipe that you use, why don't you tell us about it, down in the comments. Tomorrow, for dessert, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I am toying with a dessert that isn't for, I mean, it could be for human consumption, but it'd be awfully boring. But it is for our other best friends, the dogs, right? And I'm toying with doing dog treats that are just 3 ingredients, and it's, like pumpkin and oats, and I don't remember what the 3rd ingredient is. I guess you'd have to tune in to find out if that's what I'm going to do. But I also have a couple pie recipes, cake recipe, cheesecake, all kinds of stuff. So I guess you're just going to have to tune in tomorrow to find out. But until then, I'm going to go enjoy this bowl of soup for lunch, set the rest aside for dinner for me and Chris and Abby as she'll eat it, and think about that dessert thing. So, that being said, I love you. I love you very much. Tell somebody else you love them and you love them very much. They may need to hear it, especially nowadays. It's going to make them smile and feel good either way it goes, right? It's going to make you smile and feel good to tell them. And if you make them some of this sure butternut squash soup, I guarantee it's so good. I was speechless. I forgot what I was talking about. I guarantee that they're going to know that you care, and there's enough there. You can invite the whole family over, kids, grandkids, grandparents, depending on who you are and how old you are, friends, neighbors, guy walking down the street, pack some up for the postman, take home for dinner. I mean, they really, and then still have some left over for the freezer. This does freeze very well, by the way, and it'll hold in the fridge for about a week. So, but anyhow, that being said, till tomorrow for dessert, I love you, and I will see you then. All right, see you later. Bye-bye.